So this should be a pretty brief video, at least relatively speaking, compared to some of my other ones. We're just going to take a moment to talk about markers and how we can use them within Studio One 3. Now, the markers can help us to quickly navigate our song, especially when we're working with longer compositions or would just like to have the ability to quickly compare two sections of a song. Now, working with markers is a pretty straightforward and simple thing to do, and all we have to do to get started is click on the marker track here at the top of the track column. And actually I'm going to close out the browser as well. And if I zoom out a bit, you can actually notice that by default Studio One is going to add start and end markers at the beginning and end of our song. And these positions are important to pay attention to because when we use exporting or mix down of stems, these are going to play a role. And also the start and end markers in particular are used as a guide if we're going to update a song, if we're doing any mastering within the project page. Now, of course, these markers, the start and end markers, can be moved at any time just by clicking and dragging, and I'll actually move the end marker in. The start can be moved as well. These are actually set. I'm going to zoom back out a bit. These are actually set if I come to the start page and then create a new song. When we have the song length of 5 minutes, that's what determines that end marker at least. So if I were to change this to 3.5 minutes, that default end marker that Studio One adds, it's going to be pushed forward versus where it was when we initially brought it up. So how can we add new markers within the marker track? We would simply just set our cursor wherever we'd like to add the song, and we can click the plus button there. We can also position the cursor and then press Y on our keyboard. If I hold down Shift while I press Y, then we can name our marker before it's added. If we've added, otherwise Studio One is just going to add these numerically, but we can also come in and double click and then rename. And I'm just coming up with really creative names here. Now to remove our markers, we can just simply select one and hit the minus button here or press delete on our keyboard. Now take notice of this musical notes icon here in the marker control area. This is the default setting, and it means that our markers will maintain their position based on bars and beats. So if I were to change the tempo here, the markers that we've added will move forward or backward in relation to our tempo change. So I'll go ahead and change this to, say, 160, and then you'll notice that they kind of moved there along with our tempo change. I'll Control Z. We have another option here, this clock symbol. Now, if we have this active, then our markers are going to retain their absolute position. So if I come back again and change this to 160, you can see they remain in their same absolute position. And now Control Z. Now we can navigate to our markers by using the previous and next marker buttons in the transport. So that would be this one here is previous marker. Then we've got next. We can also use shortcut keys. So if I hold down Shift and B, then we're going to go to the previous marker. If I hold down Shift and N, and we go to the next. Also available within the transport here in the very top file area, we can come to go to marker, and we can choose any one of our first 7 markers. So if I want to go to the end, then I can click there, and we are at the end there. I'll come back up to transport, go to marker, I'll come to the rename, and so we can navigate that way as well. That method would probably be more useful if you've got a really long composition, say you're working on a orchestral piece for a film or television. We do have a couple of options within the markers here. If I were to right click, we can also rename there by double clicking. we have this stop at marker feature, as well as cut, copy, delete. We can also create a ranger section from markers. Now if we select the stop at marker, then if I come before that marker and play back here, so it's going to then stop with that selected. And we can press our space bar to start playing again, and while we're playing back, we can also navigate to our various markers. Now the last thing I want to mention is that in the beginning I mentioned that the markers can be used within our export mixdown settings as well as when we're exporting stems. So let's take a quick look at that. If I come to song and then choose export mixdown, in this area here we have the export range. By default it's on between loop, but we can actually, if we see this here, we can choose song start and end marker between each marker, and if you take close note here, we have this that we can select and then choose this drop down menu and then choose between a pair of markers here as well. So just know that you have that available to you as a tool that you can use when determining what you'd like to export. Okay, and so I think we'll go ahead and end here, and that's working with markers within Studio One 3.